Why me? There's a perfect title. People saw in me something that I didn't see in myself. I went through Boy Scouts, and I did Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, learned order and discipline. Went in the military in 1965. Joined the Air Force versus being drafted. I was already a trained. I went to vocational school, and I was already a trained automaton. But the Air Force trained me into being a jet aircraft mechanic. So training. All the things that I learned at home took me into the Air Force. The Air Force helped me develop it. And my first assignment in 1965, I was at Selfridge Air Force Base. That's on the other side of Michigan, just north of Detroit. I was working F-106s. It's an interesting aircraft. It was Air Defense Command. Air Defense Command was protecting the United States of missiles and aircraft coming across the North Pole, the Northern Defense. Our job was to shoot down those aircraft and missiles with nuclear air-to-air missiles. Once again, somebody saw something in me. Usually with your aircraft, you go up to alert and you do your time on alert with your aircraft, and your aircraft comes off, and you go back to flying and training on the flight line. For some reason, the supervisor up at the alert facility asked for me to stay on, and I became permanent duty up there, and I lost my aircraft, but I stayed at the alert facility mainly because of attention to detail. All the things that I had learned, I proceeded to do precisely. When you're dealing with nukes, it's one of those things that attention to detail counts. Got orders for Vietnam, married my wife, went to Ubon Ratchathani, it's in Thailand. I lucked out, I wasn't in boots on the ground Vietnam. We still got attacked. I was at Ubon, I was with the Triple Nickel, 555th Attack Fighter Squadron. We started out with F-4Cs and converted over to F-4Ds. I was only there a short period of time, and I got asked to fix an airplane that had been cannibalized to death. That's taking parts off of a broken airplane to fix other airplanes so that they could fly. Well, it was one of these things where my supervisor saw something in me, asked me would I take on this challenge. I did. That's another story in book 7. I won't go real deep into it, but we had 90 days to get that airplane put back together, and all the resources and everything that I mustered and responsibilities, I got that airplane put back together, and was duly rewarded. I got an R&R, went up to Chiang Mai in northern Thailand for like a 3 or 4 day vacation. I needed it. May of '68, our unit, 555th Attack Fighter Squadron, moved up to Udon, Thailand. By the way, our mission with the 555th, at Ubon, we were shooting down MiGs. That was our job, protect the F-105s that were flying out of Korat going up to northern Thailand, northern Vietnam into Hanoi, trying to bomb targets. The MiGs were coming up and shooting down the 105s. Our job was to shoot the MiGs down. We did a pretty good job of it because when we left Ubon, went up to Udon, we'd already shot down 20. The highest MiG count during the Vietnam War was that squadron. And at Udon, when we moved up there, which is just south of Vientiane, along the Mekong River, my job got shifted. I launched the last airplanes out of Ubon, gathered up the last of the equipment, put it on the back end of a C-130, and arrived at Udon. And as we offloaded everything, my supervisor asked me if I'd go into maintenance control on the midnight shift. So this was something like about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They took me over to the barracks. I went to bed. went to work at 11 o'clock at night. Evidently, I did a good job because the supervisor in maintenance control got in contact with my flight line supervisor and says, can we keep him? Because I was supposed to be just a one-night deal until I can get a replacement in there. So why me? You know, people saw in me something that they liked, evidently. So I wound up serving the rest of my tour, 6 months, working in a maintenance control room. That's a room with no windows, and all you got is radios and telephones, and you're managing a whole fleet of aircraft. Long story short, I finish up my tour and I go to Homestead Air Force Base in Florida. I arrive in, start introducing myself and doing my in-brief. They find out that, oh, you've got combat maintenance control experience. We know exactly where you're going, because during that period of time, all the units in the United States were training to go to Vietnam. So I went into maintenance control, I was a debriefer, and then I wound up working in all the aspects of maintenance control, plans and scheduling, debriefing, job control, MSL, maintenance supply liaison. So I learned another bigger picture of the operation. Each of these jobs that I took on, I was learning more and more about the total experience. So during that period of time, I actually had a job. I worked 8 to 4 or midnight, you know, a shift where I could actually depend on it, instead of being on a flight line where one day you're working midnights, another day you're working swings, another day you're working days. I was on a job where I could actually go to school and went back to school at night. I was on day shift for a period of time. I signed up for A&B classes, airframe and power plant license theory. I was already an aircraft mechanic, but I wanted to get my FAA certification to be an aircraft mechanic. So I'd work anywhere in the world on any aircraft. I'm licensed. Now, I'm retired, so I'm not looking for that job anymore. But I went and got my certification, continued my education. So, let me see where I am. While I was at Homestead, one of the jobs, additional duty I was given was, we were selling airplanes, F-4s to the Shah of Iran. And they had maintenance officers that were going through training school. They were in the States for 4 years. I was the last guy to get them. I was giving them hands-on training how to manage a fleet of aircraft, F-4 Phantoms, so that you didn't run them all out of time. Aircraft require inspections after so many hours of flying. And there's all different kinds of inspections that need to be done in different periods of time. That's managing a fleet of aircraft, watching how many hours are put on the aircraft so that they don't all run out of hours at the same time and you got no airplanes to fly. So that's the major part of plans and scheduling. So I trained them. Mountain Home, let's see, I'm losing track here. Okay, I'm going to Spangdahlem now. 1972 to 77, I went to Spangdahlem, Germany, which is in the Mosel River district near Trier in Luxembourg. And I was put back on an airplane. I was a crew chief again. I was thrilled to death. I was getting my hands dirty. I was working on an airplane. You couldn't tear me off of that airplane after 4.5 years in the dark room. I kept wiping the airplane down, cleaning it up, fixing any little minor discrepancy, touching up paint, doing everything. I got recognized for doing all that. I won awards. In fact, I won Crew Chief of the Month for 2 or 3 times, and I won Crew Chief of the Year. I made NCO of the Year, all at that wing, all for the things that I was doing, and I was thrilled to be back out on the flight line. Well, we also had the responsibilities of nuclear alert for air-to-ground targets. It was the Cold War. So once again, I would go with my airplane up to the Victor Alert, 15-man alert. There was Zulu Alert at Bitburg Air Base nearby. They were 5-minute alert. We were 15-minute alert. The 5-minute alert aircraft were responsible for shooting down aircraft coming at us. Victor Alert was responsible for pre-targeting. So the pilot knew what his target was. His job was to deliver that nuke to that target. 15-minute launch time. Once again, they saw in me something that they didn't see in other people, and they made me a supervisor, a shift supervisor up there. And I wound up there for a couple more years. And I did, they took me off of alert after a couple of years and put me in tech admin. I did a good job there. And as a vacation, my last year there, we did 5 years there. And they put me back up on alert because I was getting burned out in tech admin. But once again, people saw in me the attention to detail, things that I didn't see in myself, other people saw in me. Mountain Home, okay. So we go to Mountain Home Air Force Base, F-111s. I was a master sergeant at that point. No, I was still a tech sergeant. Hadn't made master yet.
You were master.
Tech sergeant. I made master going to next position. So when I got there, I said, this is a brand new airplane. I'm talking my in-brief. And you get briefed by your squadron commander and maintenance officers. And I said, I don't know this airplane, but I haven't any phase dock experience. Well, phase dock is an area where, after so many hours I told you about inspecting the airplane, you take it in the hangar, you take all the panels off, you take out all the parts that need time changes, you do an inside the aircraft inspection that it doesn't normally get. So you tear the airplane down, you inspect it, and you put it all back together. Well, I produced the first excellent aircraft rolling out of the dock. Quality assurance couldn't find any discrepancies. I did that several times. I wound up training all the other docks, because there were 3 docks. I was a dock chief. There were 2 other docks. I wound up training all the other people also. And then quality assurance said, we need you. So they grabbed me out of phase dock and I went into quality assurance. That's where you go out and inspect the flight line, make sure that everybody's doing their job. And I also inspected phase dock, looking for what they miss. So there's my quality assurance experience coming in. Then I get a phone call. I'm sitting at my desk, quality assurance. Hello, this is Sergeant Scherwitz, guys. This is the State Department. Oh yeah, sure. Who's pulling my leg? You know? And I said, how do I know you're the State Department? Well, they started telling me stuff that nobody knew. This neighbor knew this piece of information. That neighbor knew that piece of information. This school teacher knew this piece of information. They knew it all. So they had my full security clearance file. So I said, okay, we want you to go on a special duty assignment. Where to? We can't tell you that until you accept it. Strange. So I'm talking with them and trying to figure out. I'm between a rock and a hard spot. So I said, what happens if I don't take the assignment? The reply was, you won't like where we're going to send you. Well, that was a convincer. When we left Germany and we're driving across the states to Idaho, we had already figured out we'd already missed Germany. So we had already decided, my wife and I, that we wanted to go back to Germany. So part of this deal, still not knowing where I'm going, they said, we'll give you in writing any job that you want, as long as you're qualified, any location you want, as long as the job is there. Carte blanche. I said, okay. I haven't talked to my wife. I'm still on the telephone. I want to go to SMSgt Air Base, Germany, I want to work on the OV-10 aircraft. I didn't have any turboprop experience. All my experience was jet aircraft experience. So I wanted to learn something more so that I could use my A&P license when I got out of the service. Get a little more background experience. Turboprop is a jet engine with a propeller on the front. Most of your small airlines all use turboprops. So they said, okay, can you sit at your desk for a little while? I said, yeah, I'm doing paperwork. We'll give you a call back. So a little while later, they called me back and they said, we want you to call Washington Switch, tell them who you are, and they'll patch you through. Well, Washington Switch is the White House. So I call back, and they connect me with my new commander a year out at SMSgt Air Base, working OV-10 aircraft. Anybody, and the reply from the lieutenant colonel was, anybody who wants, and I wanted to be a flight chief because I hadn't held that job yet. He says, anybody that wants the hardest job on the flight line a year before he even gets here can have the job. So the State Department was on the phone. They said, okay, Colonel, you're done. And I was talking with the State Department. And they said, okay, you accept the assignment? Yes, I do. You're going to Egypt. We've all heard the joke. I won't even repeat it. Camp David Accord was signed in '79. This is 1980. I was going in to work for Omar Sadat as part of a technical assistance field team. My job was to train them how to manage a fleet of aircraft, hands-on. Civilian clothes, civilian appearance. In fact, I'll follow up with another little quick story here that you'll enjoy. So they tell me all this stuff, and okay, fine, thank you. And I continue, I hang up with them. I have accepted the assignment. I hang up, and I'm still doing paperwork. My commander comes rushing into the office, says, Scherwitz, what the hell did you do? I don't know what. I've been ordered to bring you down to the base commander's office. Well, I didn't even think about what had just taken place on a phone call. I thought I had really screwed up because I was doing the reports from the night before where I had inspected and wrote up some pretty heavy discrepancies. So we go down there and go into the base commander's office. The secretary says, he's waiting on you, go straight in. We both report, and he says, take a seat. And he says, I just got flash override orders. That means immediate over everything else. It was my orders to go to Egypt. And he explained to me all the things that were in those orders, that I was to maintain a civilian appearance, start growing a beard, whatever, to make myself not look military. I was given clothing allowance. I was given the right for my wife to stay on Mountain Home Air Force Base even though I was leaving, which was what I wanted, because the military family is a family. She got to stay in her own house with the kids in the same school while I was going to be gone for a year. By the way, I had called her in between the commander coming and my interview with the base commander. Anyhow, all this was explained to me. So I was gone 30 days later. Arrived in Thailand at...
Thailand? No, Egypt.
See, I told you I'm old. I look around the room and I see heads nodded. In Cairo, and I'm met by my translator, and he processes me through customs. Oh, by the way, I was given a diplomatic passport. That is wonderful. Everybody should have a diplomatic passport once in their life. You just hold it up, and everybody makes way for you. They clear a path for you. They processed me in. Got my driver's license. started, processed in and went to work. What I found out was I was going to be teaching in Arabic. I didn't know any Arabic. So I was scheduled for class at the embassy 2 nights a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, to learn Arabic. Again, I'm learning. Education, I'm learning. واحد ابني ثلاثة أربعة خمسة ستة سبعة ثمانية تسعة عشرة. I just don't have anybody to talk to. I have to go on the other side of the state and trying to have some good conversation, but I'm losing it. That was 1981 I left there. But I learned another language. I already spoke German, spoke a little bit of broken Spanish. Still working on English. So anyhow, while I was there, I got the opportunity to work on MiG-21s, Tupolev 16s, Ilyushin 28s, Me-3s, and Me-4s. The way the Camp David Accord got signed was the Middle East, Egypt, everybody in the Middle East, Israel, were afraid that Gaddafi, Israel had annihilated their Air Force. They had no way to protect themselves. I mean, no time. I'm doing this in Canada. He's doing educational stuff. So that's why I'm talking about a lot of educational. I'll pick it up fast. Anyhow, I got to work on all this Russian equipment because they had all the Russian ground equipment. They had the MiGs. I took what training that they knew, trained them on the F-4s. Moving right along. SMSgt Air Base, OV-10s, flight chief. Went right to work. We were failing our inspections there before I got there. They were due to come back in like 60 days. A new airplane to me. I grabbed one of the guys that they said was the best guy for training, and he walked me around the airplane, teaching me the airplane, and I said, no, you're wrong. This isn't this. What you're reading here should be this. So I went down to quality assurance, learned the airplane myself, and then went back and trained all my people. The inspection team, MSET, Maintenance Standardization Evaluation Team, came back 60 days after I got there, and we were rated excellent. Everybody else on the base failed. I get pulled into the chief of maintenance office. How is it possible that you can get an excellent, everybody else fails? Well, I got here, I didn't know the airplane, I learned the airplane. I worked with quality assurance, read all the manuals, taught myself. I want you to train these other people. Okay. So they came back. Maintenance standard eval came back again 90 days later, and I got an excellent. Some other sections got sat. Quality assurance failed again. So chief of maintenance pulled me in his office. Says, you're going into quality assurance. We need you in there. Long story short, we failed our next inspection because I wasn't in charge. I was just a cog in the wheel. I couldn't make any change. All I could do was my job. So they made me in head. They fired people. I hired people that I knew and turned around, made it excellent quality assurance. The whole base got excellent. Guess who grabbed me up next? Maintenance Standardization Evaluation Team, headquarters USAFE. My new job was to inspect all the air bases all over Europe. So I did that for 3.5 years. I'm shortening the story. That was where they sent me to lots of schools. I was qualified on the inventory that USAFE had. F-15s, F-16s, the A-10s, C-130s, KC-135s, TR-1, which is the U-2. Anyhow, so I went to lots and lots of schools, got qualified on all those pieces of equipment. 3.5 years later, I went, working at headquarters, you get to choose your next assignment, so to speak. You know people, you're in higher headquarters. I asked to go over to SMSgt to be the maintenance superintendent over there. It was 20 minutes down the road from Ramstein. I was there first. I went to Ramstein. Family stayed at Ramstein. I went back to work 20 minutes down the road back at SMSgt working A-10s for the Det 1 81st Tech Fighter Wing at SMSgt. I was the chief enlisted manager, maintenance superintendent. Later on, I became the chief of maintenance. Later on, I became the director of logistics, holding all three jobs. One was a major's job and one was a lieutenant colonel's job. They just eliminated those positions, so you didn't have to pay for them because I was there. Funds, why me? So that was for the benefit of the PBS, all the education that the military affords you. Little background, Cold War was going on in Europe. U.S. troops positioned in Europe. We had troops in England, Germany. War readiness material, WRM materials were pre-positioned in Europe in case of war. And who were we afraid of? The Russians. Coming across the Fulda Gap, up by Nuremberg. Let me get the mouse over here. So Germany, Berlin, right about in here is the Fulda Gap coming through the mountains. That's where they expected all the tanks to come through. So a big landmass, Army, Air Force, everybody was tuned to, if they were going to attack, here's where they're going to attack. So we had a lot of pre-positioned tanks and trucks and equipment in Germany. We were also up in the Netherlands, in Spain, Italy, and Turkey. November 1989, the Berlin Wall come down. How many people remember that? The others have sore arms. Okay. I was there. I went up and chipped wall. My wife and I, my daughter and her girlfriend, went up the day after New Year's and helped chip down the wall. That's in book number 2. Berlin Wall coming down. That means East Germany and West Germany are now one Germany. What kind of equipment did East Germany have? Anybody? Russian equipment. MiG-21s, Tuplovs, missiles, radars, all Russian equipment. We had our hands on it now. Because we were converting East Germany over to NATO-sourced equipment. M16s, if not M16s, but the same bullet cells, okay? Equipment training. This didn't happen real quick. Didn't happen overnight. It took time. But we had access to all this new, not necessarily new, but export Russian equipment. Well, one thing that you can depend on with the Russians is if it works this way, it's going to work the same. They build it the same all the way through. As an aside, to give you a little short, my first tour in Germany at Spandau, during that period of time, a Falcon missile was being transported from Hahn Air Base to some location, and it disappeared. It got kidnapped, hijacked. When I went to work in Egypt, that exact same missile that had been hijacked was on their aircraft down there. It was a different name. I forget the name right now. But the only thing different on it was it had metric heads, but American screw threads. American standard screw threads, but metric heads so that they didn't have to change out all their toolboxes. Duplicate. We let them have that missile because it was outdated. We already knew how to countermeasure it. Okay? Now that's not written anywhere, but if you read Tom Clancy and you read all these other books, you can put 2 and 2 together. Okay? So a little interesting background, how information gets traded back and forth for purposes. So, all this Russian equipment. Yes, sir?
You lost me there. So who ended up stealing or kidnapping the missile?
The Russians.
Okay.
Yeah. We basically parked it in a park plot, went in to go to the bathroom, came back, and it was gone. It was gone. Who took it? Who knew it was moving?
Better my boss game.
That's another story. So anyhow, we have access to all this Russian equipment, okay? Let's go to August 2nd, 1990. That's only a few months from the turn of the year. Iraq invades Kuwait. Okay? So, here's Iraq, here's Kuwait, and I was just in Qatar down here 2 weeks ago. That's another story. Around the world in 18 days. But here's Saudi, here's Turkey, we've got men and equipment, here's Incirlik air bases down here along the southern coast. We got other radars and missile locations and air bases here. Italy's not too far away over here, and Germany's up where Germany belongs. So the invasion takes place. Operation Desert Shield was a military operation that began in August of 1990 to defend Saudi Arabia and build up troops in response to Iraq's invasion of Kuwait. It was the first phase of the Gulf War, which lasted until February 1991. How it started? Well, August 2nd, the invasion. By August 6th, the U.S. began Operation Desert Shield. Look at how fast that turnaround was, okay? From the 2nd to the 6th, we already started Operation Desert Shield. They gave it a name. They may have already had a pre-planned name. Military does planning, long-range planning, what ifs. At the War College, they do what if scenarios for the soldiers and all the officers to try to figure out if this happens, what's our reaction? How do we deal with that? And there's libraries full of this stuff, okay? So here's a situation. By the 6th of August, we already had Operation Desert Shield to deter on our neighbor country, to protect our neighbor countries. By August 21st, the U.S. had based aircraft in the Gulf region. August 21st, 6th, 21st. Where do you think those aircraft came from?
Germany.
Europe. Sure. They're already there. They're already built up. Some of the units, the military, I'm speaking of the Air Force, okay? That's my background knowledge. Let's go back to Homestead. When I was there, we had a self-contained unit. That was when we were fighting the Vietnam War. When the unit picked up and left, we had everybody in the squad that we needed. We had hydraulic people, we had electricians, we had radar people, we had a doctor, we had supply people, we had our own supply bins, war readiness materials kits, risk kits. We had everything that we needed to just pack up, and we practiced this. We would practice packing up everything, loading it out to the flight line, and then unpack everything, put it all back away. How fast could we do it? So here we are. It's August 21st. We've already got based aircraft down the Gulf, and they were in Saudi Arabia. Organized coalitions. Politically, we were a strong political nation. We had 35 nations backing us in this event. I was stationed at SMSgt Air Base working the A-10s. My unit, the 81st TAC Fighter Wing, is that the point? Yep, I got it there. 81st TAC Fighter Wing is where the aircraft were stationed. I was in Det 1, one of 4 forward operating locations of the 81st TAC Fighter Wing. And we were at SMSgt Air Base. We were the first one. A forward operating location is set up for combat operations close to the front line of battle. It provides for fast turnarounds of aircraft in the heat of battle. Remember, I talked about the Fulda Gap, Russians coming across with tanks. We practiced with the Army helicopters. We would come in and attack a tank, break off with the A-10, and as we were leaving, Army helicopter would pop up behind us to cover our rear as we turned around and come back to attack again. It's called pop-up mission. Close coordination, Army and Air Force. That was the Cold War, okay? Here's what I had for permanent party at the station. When we do full up, we did a NATO TAC eval, full up, wartime command. I was responsible for 350 people, 18 aircraft, and all the facilities. This is the crew that we had as a stationary welcoming committee for forward operating troops that would come deploy from the States and or from England. Give you an idea, we were charged with, during Desert Shield, we were charged with preparing and shipping all of our Det 1 assets to go to the sandbox, to set up an FOL. So, what we did is job control. I talked about that, maintenance control. We boxed up all the paperwork and everything that they would need, and computers. Not all the computers, just what they needed, okay? And they gave us a list of what they wanted. To include trash can, enough forms. We photocopied more than they were possibly going to need, we thought. But they were there doing a lot more. So paperwork, everything necessary, put it in the drawer, tape the drawer shut, palletize the chairs and the tables and the trash can, everything that they needed to operate that job at that location. Debriefing, maintenance control, all the different operations, aerospace ground equipment, supply. So, just to give you an idea, this is a F-15, but I like the picture because it shows all the equipment to support one aircraft. Okay? So, that'll give you an idea of the pre-positioned equipment that we had to palletize and ship out. We call it a Dragon Head. It loads the bullets into the GAU-20 machine gun on the aircraft. This is a bomb lift down here, lifting a bomb to load it onto the aircraft. So we took our FOL, boxed it up, shipped it off to the sandbox. We didn't even know where it was going. During that period of time, you only knew what you needed to know, because everything was moving so fast. You only knew what you needed to know. So even though we boxed this stuff up, we took it to the airplane, got it all loaded on the airplanes. Crew didn't even tell us where they were going. They left with the equipment. They went to the sandbox, by the way, KKMC, King Kalani. All right, time marches on. Little by little, we were losing all our personnel every day to support the war, getting reassigned to other bases where they were short of their specialties, hydraulic men, electricians, weapons personnel, radar people, whoever was short of man personnel, our troops were, and there were 4 FOLs. They were doing this to all 4 FOLs. So there wasn't just one FOL being set up for the A-10s. There was 4 being set up, just disassembled, reassembled. So a timeline, time marches on. So we have here August 2nd. We have August 7th, Desert Shield begins. 8th, air control elements, places in Saudi Arabia. They had 37 C-141s, 10 C-5s, and 10 C-130 missions. That was just on that one day. Just to give you an idea of how fast this was all happening and moving. I'm going to jump ahead, slide in here, a little piece of information. There was very little aircraft ramp space in Europe at this time. Very little ramp airspace. So many aircraft were coming from the States, bringing equipment, supplies, refueling the aircraft, redistributing those supplies down to the sandbox and wherever they needed to go. All this activity was going on. I'll get into that a little bit later. As time marches on, it's now December. I get a call from my commander. He can't attend 6 o'clock in the morning, Thursday, December 27th briefing at the Chief of Maintenance briefing room. He asked me at 10 for him. I'm the only enlisted guy sitting in the room. Lieutenant colonels, majors, colonels. In fact, yeah, The lowest rank was a major, I believe. We're waiting for some Navy guys to arrive. Meeting agenda was also classified. No one knew what was going on. 2 Navy commanders arrived, 05s. They arrived from Texas. Take a 10-minute break. That's my planned break.